So I guess I want to start off with, what does diversity, equity and inclusion really mean for you personally? And coming into Rocked, was that there for you? And what do you want to bring to it?
For me, diversity really is the celebration, the recognition of all the differences that each of us bring into the room that make up, the beautiful tapestry of the life that we live. It's having, the different perspectives and the different experiences and cultures and all of it represented by teams, by leaders, representing the customers that you serve. Equity, having that level playing field, and inclusion for me, that component's the secret sauce. Do I feel like I belong? Do I have the psychological safety to be vulnerable and share my opinion and know that I'm respected and that it's a safe place to share ideas and that's going to be, welcomed by the group. So that's the EI for me.
Just building off of that, I think all three of those concepts just boil down, for me personally, to safety. I think our world has a very unfortunate, violent history with racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, etc. And for a lot of us who fall into those minority groups, it's a very unfortunate part of our everyday present. And so when you walk into a room, I'm always on guard because, and Bruce mentioned this yesterday as well, like the unknown is scary. Taking risks with the unknown is scary, and especially when there's so much there, it's your physical and psychological safety. So when I walk into a room with Rocked, at least, and see people who look like me, people who don't look like me, people who speak so many different languages, people who've had experiences that are similar to mine or not similar to mine, and I can see that everyone coexists together, I feel safe. And we've been talking a lot about unleashing our potential and moving out of our comfort zone. And I think a very important part of that is there needs to be a comfort zone to begin with. You need a safe space where you can take those risks, build the bases, make mistakes, learn from the people around you to build that confidence you need to take the leap and get out of your comfort zone. So yeah, safety.
I would agree with all of that. I think diversity for me is about the me. It's about the person. It's about who you are as a person, whether it's female, male, transgender, on the LGBTQ, neurodiversity, mothers, also diverse opinions. I think that's diversity. Equity is the systemic addressing of that, and inclusion is kind of what you said, the glue, and what glues it all together. One thing that stood out to me about Rocked when I first started, I think it was like day one, and I believe Tirana was like, you can have any idea and bring it to the table and ask us to do anything. And then if it doesn't work or it fails, we still learn something from it. And so from the get-go, I think we're encouraged here to have a voice. And I think it's important and to kind of put the onus back on ourselves to say, if we're encouraged to have a voice, then we need to be brave and exercise our rights.
Whatever you all said, yeah. Adding on to that, I think one thing that's very important is opportunity, where regardless of where you come from, your color of your skin, your sexual orientation and all that, when you're given the opportunity, you're able to succeed and that kind of stuff. Basically, you're judged by the hard work you want to put in and nothing else. So having that level, that same amount of opportunity for every single one to succeed, to experiment, to do anything. I think that's very, very important. And we shouldn't be limited based on how we look and all that stuff.
Definitely. So I'm going to start on your side, Ham. Who do you think influenced you to basically be so interested in EDI? Like, where did it come from for you?
I was doing a bit of self-reflection yesterday, and I basically looked back to my past, right, when I was growing up and all that stuff. Yes, I'm Asian, but I'm also like a minority in my country. Like I'm a Malay. It's not Malaysian. I'm Malay. There's a big difference there. But basically, it's the whole idea of there's certain instances where I was growing up in my circle of group, or even like when I'm looking for a job, where unfortunately I'm based off my race. And that's something that I could have decided to like, oh, accept that as part of what it is, but I choose not to. And I look at it as like, okay, because of that, I want to work extra hard to prove myself, to make sure that I have the opportunity to prove myself to you. And as I progressed in my career and all that, then I went into a role of leadership, then I start to reflect that, however, I don't want anyone else to go through the same thing. I want everyone to have the same playing field, same opportunity and all that. And I think that's something that I practice every single day. I'll look at you based on your hard work, on how much you want to put in and all that, rather than your color and so on and so forth. So I think that's where the passion and the drive comes in for me.
You went in with that question. Wow. In the interest of vulnerability,
Keep you on your toes, you know.
There's this quote that said, "Speak your truth even if your voice shakes." And that quote reigns very true for me, very much in this moment and in general. And for those of you that follow me on LinkedIn, you might already know this. And if you don't follow me on LinkedIn, welcome to the party. But I am transgender, and this is the first time in my life I have brought it to a public setting in this way. And it's still difficult, although I've been out for a lot of years, it's still very difficult to bring this kind of a conversation into a work setting. And not because of anything external, mostly because of my own internal fears and stories that I have. But what ignites me is this notion that there are people potentially in the audience who might feel diverse in their own way, and they don't feel comfortable being themselves. And so what inspires me is that I take the stand and have a voice for people who might not feel as comfortable.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I think just like what you said, it always comes when you're in these minority groups, like when you face suppression or you're in the closet for so long, there's no way that you can escape it. So it's just a part of your life. And then when you come out of those situations, or when you're in a better place in your life, I think it just comes from you, where you're like, when you hear other people and you know that you lived through it and you came out of it, you can help other people do the same thing.
Yeah, a big part of what's influenced me is that journey of fear and anxiety and uncertainty, going through that, but then like remembering the people who believed in me, instilled that belief, removed those self-limiting thoughts. And then I think about it from a wider perspective. If you strip away the orientations, the genders, the lines on a map, the cultures, we're all people co-inhabiting this giant rock that's flying through space. And
Soon on the moon, though. But.
soon on the moon as well. And when I think about it that way, and when I think about us all as people, I don't think anybody doesn't have hopes and dreams and ambitions. And so if I think about stripping away those self-limiting beliefs and stripping away, those anxieties and negative thoughts, and, championing people to, realize those hopes and dreams, I think that's a big driver for me.
Thank you, and thank you so much for sharing, everyone. So I guess going off that, what influences you? I guess what motivates you? Like, is it an intrinsic motivation? Is it an external motivation? Why do you want to be the voice for change? I know you've touched on this already, but I want to kind of go into it a bit deeper. Anyone like to start? We don't have to go in a line as well. You can jump in whenever you like.
I could get off. I think I take it a little bit from sport. If I think back to like the best rugby team that I've played within, and it was just like where the bond is so strong, where we're on the field in that flow state, like playing instinctively. I think about like the element of success, and what it comes down to is just like, we don't go into games thinking, oh, like this is 80 minutes, I'm going to run around. It was always the mindset, like each moment you decide what you do in the next moment, and the next moment you make a tackle, you run to a breakdown, whatever it might be. And when it gets hard, and when you enter that like championship quarter where a game's like on the line and it's win or lose, rather than relying on a star player to like win the game for you, we always put the ownership on each of us to be like, be the difference that you want to see, be the difference that you want in that game for the team, for the people around you. So if people are my team, if everybody in this room is my team, I want to be the difference. I want to make the play, inspire the person, instill the belief in others so that we can collectively, move towards a greater world.
I think what motivates me the most is my son. We moved across country for this job from Colorado, and he's autistic. And we stripped away all of his structure and everything that he knows, and that's very triggering for him. And typically, it's hard for him to change his structure. And when he went to his first day of school, he was really excited, and I was excited for him, but I was also very nervous for him. And he went into school, and he just wanted to tell everybody in his class something. And he stood in front of his class, he's 12 years old, and he said, "I'm autistic, and that means I'm going to change the world." And it was like the most proud moment I've had in my life. But it reminded me that changing the world starts with one person. And it starts with one story, it starts with one friendship, it starts with one diversity program. And so what motivates me is to be that one person to help another person take their next step.
I think for me, it all started out when I was in the military service, the mandatory military service in Singapore, where I was given the opportunity to work with a diverse group of individuals from every socio-economic level and that kind of stuff. And what I've realized within that 2 years was there's all these awesome individuals that were just not given any guidance or opportunity to succeed. Like each time they want to do something, they are just shot down by some societal construct or whatever. And it's very disheartening for them because they're trying their best, but they just can't break that mold, unfortunately. And being in a position where having someone to believe in you, to always push you and have your back, I think that's a very potent motivational thing for anyone, especially someone who didn't grow up with anything and just want to basically live a normal life. And yeah.
I think for me, I come from a long line of women who just were told that they can't do things and they went around and did it anyway. My grandmom was a freedom fighter. My mom, when she was getting her PhD, was told that she can't actually receive her thesis until like she gets married. So she had to give her marriage certificate. And she was like, absolutely not. My husband didn't get his doctorate, I did. So I've been taught from a really young age that like, if you need something, if you want to do something, get the help from the people who help you and go get it. Just like what Tarana said yesterday really resonated with me. And the other thing, I think it sounds really weird when I say it, maybe creepy too, but I really love people. Like, I don't know how else to say it, but I really, really just love people a lot. And so for me to make a safe space for anyone, even if that's just a conversation you have with one person or if it's a group where everyone feels heard, is one of my biggest priorities in life in general. So that's what motivates me.
Love it. I totally resonate with that. People are awesome. And I think I did a study once and it was like the expectation you put on someone, they'll always meet that expectation. So always have those very high expectations of people because they'll always come up and meet that. So I guess we're going on to our fourth and final question is, being in a company like Rocked, being in a company where Vincent already said, if you have an idea, you just pull the people together at Rocked and write a lightning rod about it and get it going, you know? Like Rocked is a very easy company to do what you want to do as long as you can show the purpose and the value of it. And so what I want to ask you all today is, what do you want to see? What do you want to do for the best year yet? What do you want to do at Rocked for DEI? And yeah, what change do you want to make?
I guess I'll go first. I would love to see a full-time resource dedicated towards diversity, equity, and inclusion, because it is a full-time job to help an organization transition, not just from diversity, but into equity, which I think is where we are in our journey. So I would love to see a resource dedicated to it.
I would like us to expand further on creating this safe space within Rock, where we embrace our differences and all that. And I think more importantly, I mean, we are all humans and we are curious. Like having that safe space to ask questions, especially on things that you're not too sure about in terms of, oh, what does like transgender mean, that kind of stuff. Like creating that space, and there's no judgment in asking. You just want to learn, want to understand each other more, and that's where we are able to be stronger at the end of the day.
I'll do one serious one and one fun one. So I think I was talking about this earlier today too, like what can we do? And Sydney brought up a really good point. She was like, you know what? We should all be more involved. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And I was like, okay, so for Rainbow Rocks this year, I think my goal is going to be to see how we can get just more people involved, more people talking to each other. I think a lot of times when we get into a room together, we talk about our experiences. That's where those ideas come from. That's where we learn what people are going through and what we need to change. So just like getting involvement, not just from like the people in Rainbow Rocks who identify as LGBTQIA+, but also the allies, you know? So involvement from everyone, that would be great. And the other one is I would love to see a Rocked float at the New York City Pride Parade.
A rocket ship?
Yep, a rocket ship, that would be great. Let's do it.
For me, it's how do we get more interconnected? I've seen at other organizations, they use this cool thing called coffee roulette. And so like every couple of weeks it like matches you with someone randomly throughout the organization, and you can just like connect and chat and talk. And I feel like the more we get to know each other and the different perspectives and each of us as people, I think that's going to be great for Rocked. But also I think it's throwing the challenge out to everybody that we all can take ownership. We can all be that difference to each other. And just taking the time for like self-reflection, what's a misunderstanding I had with someone, and how can I like seek understanding from them? You know, what are some of my biases, and how can I address that, and how do they impact others? What's something really cool that somebody did that that was completely different to how I would do it, and like what can I take from that kind of learning? Those kind of things, and how can I instill belief in others and make that impact? And I think it is a tricky area to navigate. So I would just say, like, at least for myself personally, like, please come and chat anytime. And I'm happy to like talk about this topic and connect with anybody out there who wants to talk more about it.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I want to add, and Michael Rashawn was actually the one that brought this up, but there's three things that we can all do in this room right now, and we can think about it. And one of them is like, what are the commitments to yourself in order to kind of embody diversity, equity, and inclusion, whether that's not speaking first in meetings to allow space for somebody else to speak, or becoming educated and talking to me or him and have questions, and then commitments to your team. So what are you going to do at a team level? And then the bigger piece of that is the commitments from the company and to the company. And so I think we can all be thinking about those three things after this chat.
Still my closing.
Sorry.
Totally fine. So that's pretty much the chat. Was just an introduction to EDI. You don't know. There's obviously the physical appearance. You can see someone's different to you, but you actually don't know who someone is, why they're different, what makes them diverse. It could be gender. It can be the home they come from. It can be they can be neurodiverse, and you would have no idea. Like, a lot of people mask who they are and what they do, and what makes them different because they're scared. And I think Simon had his triangle up before, and the bottom was belonging. And it's making a space where everyone belongs. And I want everyone to kind of make a commitment to yourself and make a commitment right now and think about it. And I'll give you a little bit to think about it, is what do you want to do for this year that you will take into the room when you go into a meeting? You'll think to yourself, even just be aware, there's only one girl in this room. Or be aware that I should bring someone else in that potentially could learn. Or think about the fact that even if you're teaching someone something, they could learn differently to you. And they might not learn by just talking to you. They might learn by writing down things or by pictures, or there's so many little things you can do and you can bring into the office that makes it such a place of belonging and such a place of welcoming and safety. And so yeah, that's what I want to leave this with. I want you to have a commitment to yourself of how you're going to make the people around you, your team around you, to make it that place of belonging for them. So thanks everyone.